Hello, in this lesson we're going to be talking about solving two-step equations. But before we talk about solving two-step equations, we're first going to review one-step equations. So let's talk about a review of one-step equations, which is what we spoke about in our last lesson. So let's dive into an example here. And our example of a one-step equation is saying solve for f, and then they give us the equation f minus 5 is equal to 15. Now, remember, when it's saying solve for a pronumeral, so in this case f, what it means is it's saying, well, what is f equal to? That's what it wants us to find. What is f equal to? In our last lesson, we spoke about how we can use a flowchart to help our understanding here. So if we have a look at our equation that we've been given, we have f minus 5 is equal to 15. So I'm taking this f and I'm minusing 5 from it. So I'm getting f minus 5. And I know that f minus 5 is equal to 15, so I can put a 15 in this box here. Now, if I want to figure out what f is equal to, I'm going to have to go backwards, which means I'm going to have to do the opposite operation of going this way. So if going this way, I was minusing 5, then to go backwards, I'm going to do the opposite of minusing 5, which is plusing 5. 15 plus 5 is going to be 20. And that means 20 is going to be my answer. So I'll put a 20 there. So that means f is equal to 20. Now, it's really important to realize that flowcharts are training wheels. Flowcharts are training wheels. Meaning, by the end of this lesson, I don't actually want you using flowcharts anymore. They're just a means of helping us understand what's going on. But by the end of this lesson, I don't want you using them anymore. And the real working I want you to show is what I'm about to show you now. So let me now show you the real working you need to be showing for this. So not flowcharts, what I'm about to do is the real working. Okay, so we come over here. We want to get f by itself. So I want to get rid of this minus 5. To get rid of the minus 5, I'm going to do the opposite of minusing 5, which is plus 5. So I'm going to plus 5 to both things. Notice that's what I'm doing over here. So that means if we were to write it out in full, I've got f minus 5, and then I'm going to plus 5 to it. And then I've got 15 on this side, and I'm plussing 5 to that as well. Minus 5 plus 5, that's just 0. So that just goes away. And that means I'm just left with an f here, and then 15 plus 5 is 20. F is equal to 20. There it is right there. And you can see that's what we got there as well. That is one-step equations, everyone. That is how you solve one-step equations. Remember, this is the real working out. This is just to help us understand. Let's now move on to what this lesson is all about, which is two-step equations. Two-step equations. Now, we first have to ask ourselves, what's the difference between a one-step and a two-step equation? Well, let's look over here. Let's look at this. This is an example of a two-step equation. And do you see how two things are happening to my x here? I'm multiplying it by 3, and I'm plussing it by 4. I have one step, I have two steps. I'm timesing it by 3, I'm plussing it by 4. There are two operations here that are occurring. That's why we call it a two-step equation. As opposed to what we saw over here, when we're talking about one-step equations, there was only one step. There's only one thing here. You're only minusing 5. There's only one operation. So a two-step equation is when you have two operations occurring. All right, we're going to do the same thing. We're solving for x. But before we launch into that, let's first build up our flowchart to help us understand what's going on. Now, we immediately run into an issue, and that is, well, if I've got two operations occurring, this timesing by 3 and plus 4, what operation goes first? This is where the order comes into play. And this is what I'm going to be talking about again and again and again and again in this lesson. The order matters when doing two-step equations. The order is crucial that you get it correctly. So whenever you think of order of operations, what should spring into your mind is BIDMAS. BIDMAS. Am I going to do my timesing by 3 first or my plussing by 4 first? Well, you know that multiplication comes before addition. So that means you're going to times 3 first. X times 3 is 3x. Then you're going to do your addition. Then you're going to plus 4. 3x plus 4 is 3x plus 4. And I know that that is equal to 10. So I put a 10 in there. And this is saying 3x plus 4 is equal to 10. Now, if I want to figure out what x is, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go backwards like this. So I'm going to do the opposite operation. So instead of plussing by 4, I'm going to minus 4. I'm doing the opposite operation. 10 minus 4 is 6. And then, instead of timesing by 3 to go back again, I'm going to do the opposite of timesing by 3, which is dividing by 3. 6 divided by 3 is going to be 2. So that means solve for x, well, x is going to be equal to 2. That's our answer. But remember, flowcharts are just training wheels. We don't want to become reliant on the flowchart. We want to learn the real way of doing this. But before we do this, before we go through the real way, we need to really appreciate the order some more. And the order in which we went backwards this time. Do you see how we minused 4 and then divided by 3? And the reason why we did that is because we did the opposite order to which we built it up. So when we were building it up, we first timesed by 3, then plussed 4. So we went 1, then 2. But then, when we were going backwards and solving, we swapped up that order. We first dealt with the 4 first, and then we dealt with the 3 second. We did the opposite order to which we built it up. And this is where we need to stop and pause and understand exactly what we mean by this order, because the order is what people get wrong when solving two-step equations. So I'm going to use an example that we're all familiar with, and that is putting on our shoes and socks. And we're going to think about it in terms of the equation that we've been given, 3x plus 4. So 3x plus 4, here it is right there, 3x plus 4. We're going to think about this in terms of putting our shoes and socks on. So x is going to represent your foot. And I know that the first thing that I do is I am going to times it by 3, because it's 3x, multiplication comes first. That's the first thing I do. Well, I put my sock on first. So I'm putting on a sock of times 3, because you put your sock on before your shoe on. So let's make sure it fits nice and snug. There it is. The next thing that I do is I plus 4. That's the second thing that you do. You plus 4. So that means that represents my shoe. So I'm going to put my shoe on now. So I put my sock on, times 3. I put my shoe on, plus 4. Now, it comes to the end of the day. You're tired. You want to take your shoes and socks off. What order do you take them off in? What order do you take your shoes and socks off in? You do the reverse order in which you put them on. So because you put your sock on, then your shoe on, at the end of the day, when you take them off, you take your shoe off, then your sock off. You switch around the order. So that means I'm going to take my shoe off first. And remember, I'm taking my shoe off first because that was the last thing I put on. So if plussing 4 put it on, I'm going to minus 4 to take it off. And that's why I have a minus 4 first. And then I'm going to take my sock off next. And if my sock is times 3, to take it off, I divide by 3. And remember, the reason why you're doing the divide by 3 as your last step in going backwards is because it's the first thing you did in going forwards. It's really super duper important that you understand that the order is important. You can't just do any order that you want. The order matters. Okay, let's now go through the real way of solving this. So the real way of going about this question. So you're solving for x here. You're solving for x. Okay. Remember, I'm trying to get x by itself. That's what it means. The first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to minus 4. And again, the reason why is for all the reasons that I've spoken about up here and with the shoe example as well. It's because plus 4 is the last thing you did in building it up. So it has to be the first thing you do in taking it off. That means if I'm minusing 4 to both sides, on this side, I've just got 3x. And then on this side, I've got 10 minus 4, which is 6. Then we keep on going. I now need to get rid of this times 3. To get rid of the times 3, I divide by 3. To get rid of the times 3, I divide by 3. And remember, you always do it to both sides, always and forever. That means I'm just going to be left with x here, and then 6 divided by 3 is 2. That, everyone, is your answer. That is your answer. X is equal to 2 is your answer, and you can see it there as well. X is equal to 2 is your answer. That's how you do it. Make sure your order is correct, otherwise you will get a wrong answer. Now, let's say you're in a test and you want to double check your answer is correct. Well, you can actually do that. You can check your answer by substitution. So you take your original equation and sub in your answer. Sub in x is equal to 2. That means into the x spot, I'm going to put 2, like this. And now I'm going to check whether or not this is a true statement. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 4, does that equal to 10? Well, 6 plus 4 is 10. And 10 equals to 10, it is true. So that means I have done it correctly. I have checked my answer. Tick. This is my answer. X is equal to 2. Because remember, when it's saying solve for x, your answer should be x is equal to something. That's how to do it, everyone. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm now going to go through 2 more examples just to solidify this in your head. What you could do, if you're feeling like you've got a good grasp on this, see if you pause the video, if you can answer it the real way straight away. Because remember, the flow chart is just training wheels. What I've done here, this is the real working that you need to be showing. So if you're feeling like, you know what, I think I've got this, you might like to pause the video and give this one a go. Make sure you get the right order. Okay, hopefully you gave it a go. Let's see if you got it right now. I'm first going to go through the flow chart method just to help us understand what's going on here. And I'll move through it a bit faster. What's the first thing that's happening here to my, oh, and this should be a k. What's the first thing that's happening here to my k? I'm being asked to solve for k. What's the first thing that's happening to my k? Well, according to BidMass, I know that I do my brackets first, so that means I'm minusing 2 first from my k. So I'm going k minus 2, k minus 2. And then the next thing that I'm doing is I'm timesing it by 5. And you're timesing the whole thing here by 5. So it's 5 brackets k minus 2, because the whole thing there is being times by 5. Okay, and I know that this is equal to 30. And now I'm going to work backwards. So that means I'm going to do the opposite operations here. So I'm going to divide by 5 instead of timesing by 5. And that's going to leave me with 30 divided by 5 is 6. And then to go backwards again, I'm going to, instead of minusing 2, plus 2. So that means I'm going to get 8 here. So k is equal to 8. K is equal to 8. Remember, this is just the training wheels. Hopefully you were successful in doing this way. So solving for k, the first thing that I'm going to do here is divide by 5. And the reason why I'm dividing by 5 first is because when I was building it up, the last thing that I did was times it by 5. So in going backwards now, the first thing I have to do is the opposite of that. So the first thing I do is divide by 5. I know it seems a bit confusing, but with enough practice, you'll get there. All right, so k minus 2 is equal to 30 divided by 5 is 6. And then we keep on going here. I now am going to plus 2 to both sides. The reason why I'm plussing 2 to both sides is because I'm doing the opposite operation to minusing 2. So I'm going to get k is equal to 8. Now, check your answer is correct by substitution, because I'm saying k is equal to 8. How can I check whether or not this is in fact the case? Well, what I can do is I can sub in k is equal to 8. That's what I can do. I can sub in k is equal to 8 and check whether or not I get it, in fact, the right answer, which should be 30. So into the k spot, I'm going to put 8. So here I put 5. Instead of k, I write 8 minus 2. This should be equal to 30. 8 minus 2 is 6. 5 times 6 is 30. Well, would you look at that? 30 is equal to 30. That's true. We've done it correctly. Hooray. Again, it's the order that matters. If you get the order right, you'll get the answer right. Okay, the last one here. Again, you might like to pause the video, and I might do this one first before I go through my flowchart. So pause the video and see if you can answer it straight away. Solve for W. Can you solve this for W for me? So pause, see if you get it. Okay, what you should have done is you should have as your first move times by 3. And the reason why is because looking at this, it's quite clear that the last thing I did in building up this equation was divide the whole thing by 3. So the first thing I do in going backwards is the opposite, so timesing it by 3. Okay, so that means I'm going to get w minus 2 is equal to 10 times 3 is 30. Then I need to get rid of this minus 2, so I'm going to plus 2. So I'm going to plus 2 to both sides. That means I'm going to get w is equal to 32. W is equal to 32. That's going to be my answer. How could you now check whether in fact this is the correct answer? Well, you could sub it into the original equation and see if you get it correct. So sub in w is equal to 32. So into the w spot, I'm going to put 32. And this should be equal to 10. 32 minus 2 is 30. Over 3 is equal to 10. 30 over 3 is equal to 10, 10. Because 30 over 3 is equal to 10, 10 equals 10, it's true. So my answer is correct. The answer is w is equal to 32. Now, if you're still struggling with the order, that's perfectly fine. It is a tricky idea to get the order correct. You might need to come and look at the flow chart here. If you think that you've got it, you can now move on to the next video, which is doing some practice. But I want to go through this to make sure that you're all understanding what you need to do, just in case you didn't get the order correct here. Remember, the first thing you need to consider is the order it was to build this thing up. Think about bid mass. There's actually invisible brackets here. Because this is w minus 2, the whole thing is divided by 3. So that means I'm minusing 2 first to get w minus 2. And then you're dividing by 3 next, because you're taking that w minus 2 and you're dividing the whole thing by 3. And I know that that is equal to 10. That's an ugly 10. And now we keep on going. I now am going backwards. And do you see that I times 3 first in going backwards? Because dividing by 3 was the last thing I did in building it up. So timesing by 3 is the first thing that I do in tearing it down. So I'm going to go 30 here. And then I'm going to plus 32 to it. Sorry, plus 2 to it. Plus 2 to it, because I'm doing the opposite there. And that means I'm going to get 32 as my answer. And would you see there, that's that. Important to realize, don't get too comfortable with the flowcharts. The flowcharts are just helping us, but we will abandon them pretty much now. We're not going to use them anymore. We're only going to be doing our real working, here. Hopefully this has made sense. If it has not made sense and you're still struggling with this, make sure to come speak to me, because in the next part of this lesson, you're going to be working through some questions and you're going to be answering them and taking some pictures of your work to prove it to me. So if this isn't making sense, you need to come speak to me. If it is making sense, you can move on to the next video. All right, I'll see you later.